$500 in my bag. You took it. You're a thief. No. Liar. You stole from me. Please, auntie, I swear I didn't. Don't lie to me. Give it back. I have nothing. Please believe me.
The scorching afternoon sun beat down relentlessly on the crowded, dusty marketplace, casting sharp shadows across the maze of colorful wooden stalls. The humid air was heavy with the sharp scent of dried spices, roasting meat, exhaust fumes, and fresh fruits. Folake moved quickly through the noisy throng of vocal vendors and eager shoppers, her aching arms weighed down by heavy bags of groceries. Her entire focus was on getting back to her modest, rented apartment on the edge of town, where her hungry 8-month-old baby boy was waiting in the care of her loyal friend Morenike. As Folake carefully negotiated her way past a parked yellow taxi, an elegantly dressed woman stepped out of the back seat. She wore tailored clothes and expensive jewelry, exuding an air of immense wealth. However, as she adjusted her silk scarf, her heavy, designer leather purse slipped from her grip and landed flat on the gravelly ground. Desperate only to be helpful and polite, Folake immediately paused, bent down, and scooped the pristine bag out of the dirt. She held it out toward the woman with a gentle, soft smile. But instead of returning the courtesy with a simple expression of gratitude, the woman, Flora, snatched the bag back with a scowl. Flora unzipped the inner compartments, frantically rummaged through them, and suddenly let out a sharp, ear-piercing scream that echoed across the market square. Without warning, Flora violently grabbed Folake by her thin wrists, trapping her in place. In front of a rapidly gathering crowd of onlookers, Flora loudly accused Folake of stealing $500 in cash that had allegedly been tucked neatly into the purse's interior lining. Folake's heart pounded against her ribs in sheer terror as dozens of suspicious eyes turned toward her. Tears welled in her eyes as she pleaded frantically, swearing on everything she held dear that she had barely held the bag for 2 seconds and was only trying to perform a neighborly act of kindness. Unmoved by her weeping and fueled by mounting rage, Flora screamed for the nearby market security team, demanding that Folake be forcefully detained and handed directly to the police. The guard on duty, terrified of losing his position to the influence of a prominent, wealthy patron, shoved his way through the crowd, grabbed Folake's arms, and pinned her firmly to the ground despite her panicked cries of innocence. Just as total despair threatened to crush Folake, a calm, authoritative voice echoed across the courtyard, commanding everyone present to stop. Kola, a highly respected local property owner who happened to be conducting a routine walkthrough of his commercial buildings, stepped straight into the center of the chaotic confrontation. Taking in the scene, Kola recognized the quiet dignity in Folake's tear-filled eyes and immediately sensed the cruel unfairness of the frantic accusation. With quiet authority, Kola ordered the trembling guard to release her arms at once. He promised the gathered crowd that he would personally take full responsibility for investigating any formal complaint with the market management himself. Shakily gathering her dropped groceries, Folake scrambled to her feet and fled as fast as her legs could carry her, returning to her humble room where Morenike held her close while she sobbed over her baby.
Why did you tell the guard to free that woman who stole my money?
Calm down. It was just money, and she looked innocent.
Innocent? She took my purse. How could you do that?
She was young and scared. I felt bad for her.
I can't believe you chose her over me.
Across town, inside a lavish penthouse suite overlooking the city skyline, Flora paced back and forth across the polished marble floor, fuming to her fiancé, who happened to be Kola. She bitterly berated him for his actions at the market, calling him weak for letting a common street thief walk away without facing immediate criminal charges. Wanting desperately to restore peace in his living room and bring an end to her dramatic, exhausting tirade, Kola calmly offered to replace the missing $500 out of his personal bank account. However, before the heated argument could escalate any further, a sharp, steady knock echoed from the front entryway. Standing on the threshold was the local cab driver, holding a crisp paper envelope in his hand. He politely explained that while vacuuming the back seat cushion of his taxi earlier that afternoon, he had discovered a stack of $500 tucked deep into the fabric where Flora had been sitting. Flora's cheeks flushed with deep, burning embarrassment as the driver handed over the cash and departed. With a heavy sigh, Kola firmly reprimanded his fiancée for jumping to destructive, spiteful conclusions about a struggling stranger who had shown her nothing but genuine goodwill. Driven by a strong sense of moral duty to correct the terrible injustice Folake had endured, Kola set out early the following morning to locate her. After asking around her neighborhood, he found her standing by a dusty roadside, weeping uncontrollably as she tried in vain to hail a passing taxi. In her arms was her baby, who was burning with a sudden, dangerously high fever. Without a second thought, Kola pulled his car over, opened the passenger door, and ushered the mother and child inside. He drove them straight to a private pediatric hospital, covered the expensive admission and treatment fees in full, and patiently waited in the waiting room until the child's fever broke. Once the doctor cleared the baby, Kola safely drove them back to their apartment building. During the ride, Kola learned that Folake was desperately seeking reliable employment to feed her child and maintain a safe living space. Moved by her unwavering dedication to her son, Kola returned home and convinced a reluctant, sullen Flora to hire Folake as their primary live-in housekeeper. The arrangement provided Folake with a clean, private bedroom, a respectable monthly salary, and a secure environment to raise her baby. Life inside Kola's expansive estate transformed rapidly over the following weeks. Overflowing with gratitude for the life-changing opportunity, Folake poured her entire heart and soul into her daily duties. She scrubbed the sprawling floors, polished the furniture, and managed the household chores with tireless dedication from before dawn until late in the evening. Observing how exhausted she looked at the end of each day, Kola regularly stepped in to intervene, insisting that she take mandatory breaks, eat proper meals, and protect her personal health. A warm, gentle atmosphere gradually took root within the walls of the mansion. Whenever Folake was busy in the kitchen, preparing complex meals, Kola willingly volunteered to hold, feed, and play with the baby. He bought the child small toys and spent quiet moments entertaining him in the living room. Overshared morning stretching routines in the sunlit garden courtyard and peaceful conversations about life, a deep, respectful bond of companionship quietly bloomed between Kola and Folake. However, this peaceful domestic environment only fueled Flora's toxic, bitter envy. Watching her wealthy, handsome fiancé treat a hired domestic worker with deep respect and dote on her child as if he were his own filled Flora with intense paranoia and insecurity. She began inspecting Folake's work with an impossibly high standard, complaining about non-existent dust on modern tables and demanding that Folake redo entire chores in the middle of the night. Flora constantly reminded Folake of her place, trying to strip away the confidence she had gained since moving in. Unable to contain her anger any longer, Flora eventually ambushed Folake in an isolated hallway one afternoon. She towered over the young mother, hurling degrading insults and issuing strict, unfair rules. Flora explicitly forbade Folake from stepping outside the estate gates without her personal permission and ordered her, under threat of immediate termination, to stay completely away from Kola. Driven by an obsessive desire to banish Folake from the estate permanently, Flora devised a wicked, hidden plot. Taking advantage of an afternoon when Folake was out purchasing groceries, Flora quietly slipped into Folake's private bedroom. She reached beneath the thin mattress and stuffed a thick roll of Kola's foreign business bills deep into the bedding. Not long after Folake returned and began unpacking the kitchen supplies, Flora raised a loud, hysterical alarm through the house. She sprinted down the stairs, screaming that thousands of dollars in foreign currency had been stolen directly from the master bedroom safe. Kola, deeply troubled by the accusation, reluctantly conducted a walkthrough of the house to investigate. When he searched Folake's room, he pulled the hidden envelope of money out from under her mattress. Flora immediately began shouting, demanding that the police be called at once to drag Folake away to prison in handcuffs. However, over the past several weeks, Kola had closely observed Folake's complete honesty, humility, and work ethic. He refused to believe that she was capable of such a deceitful crime. Ignoring Flora's loud protests, Kola dismissed the entire matter on the spot, choosing to absorb the potential financial confusion quietly rather than ruin the life of an innocent mother. Furious that her elaborate trap had failed to destroy her rival, Flora delivered a harsh, non-negotiable ultimatum. It is either that girl leaves this house today, or I leave. When Kola stood his ground and refused to throw a vulnerable mother and her infant onto the cold streets over an unproven accusation, Flora tore her diamond engagement ring from her finger, threw it onto the marble floor, and stormed out of the mansion. Even though she was spared from criminal charges, Folake recognized that she could no longer remain in the house amidst such immense personal drama. Packing her few belongings, she respectfully resigned, moved back in with Morenike, and prepared to face the world once more on her own terms. To her surprise, Kola secretly wired a generous financial startup fund directly to her bank account, wanting to ensure that she and her baby would never be left destitute. Deeply moved by his kindness, Folake put every single unit of currency to work.
May I check your hair
She
texture?
rented a modest,
Of course,
clean
please do.
stall
It
at the
feels
local
very
market,
soft. This
sourcing
shampoo would be
quality hair
perfect.
extensions,
Oh, thank
beauty
you. I'll
products,
take it.
and
This serum will
accessories.
keep it
With hard
silky.
work,
Perfect.
sharp
I'll take
business
it.
instincts,
We're so
and
glad you
Morenike's
like
constant
it.
support,
Let us know if you
Folake's
need
shop
anything else.
quickly gained a reputation
This
for
serum will
honesty
keep it
and
silky.
fairness,
Perfect.
becoming
I'll
a
take
popular
it.
location
We're
for
so
women
glad you
across
like
the
it.
neighborhood.
Let us
The lingering illusion of peace in Kola's life shattered completely a few weeks later. Following an independent audit of his corporate finances, Kola uncovered evidence of a massive internal embezzlement scheme. Upon further investigation, he discovered a shocking truth. Flora's secret, long-term lover was actually Segun, Kola's primary business partner and childhood friend. The calculating pair had orchestrated Flora's relationship with Kola from the very beginning, planning to marry into his estate so they could systematically drain his vast wealth. Armed with full proof of their financial crimes and personal betrayals, Kola confronted both Segun and Flora in front of their legal representatives. Without hesitation, Kola severed all corporate ties, cancelled their contracts, and turned the evidence over to law enforcement, ensuring that both conspirators would face severe consequences for their actions. Freed from the web of lies that had corrupted his household, and deeply missing the genuine warmth, honesty, and laughter that Folake and her baby had brought into his life, Kola traveled to the market to visit Folake's thriving shop. He stood before her not as a wealthy landlord or a former employer, but as a humbled
Forgive me for
man
not seeing
whose
it
heart
sooner.
had been
Let
won
me
by
make
her
it right.
resilience,
I forgive
grace,
you. I wanna
and
move
unwavering
forward.
character. With complete sincerity, Kola asked for the privilege of standing by her side as her partner. He offered to support her growing business, protect her family, and serve as a true, devoted father to her baby. Looking into his eyes and remembering the constant integrity, protection, and gentleness Kola had shown her through every hardship, Folake smiled through tears of joy
love you
and took
so
his hand, Holding her baby securely between them, they turned together toward a peaceful, honest future built on trust, safety, and deep, lasting love.